Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest. Fred Armisen.
Prince Paul.
Javier Munoz. Seth Meyers.
Tracy Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talk House podcast. Ow!
What's up?
This is Nick Dawson, editor-in-chief of Talkhouse Film. I am trying to be Elliot Einhorn, who is away this week. But fortunately, joining me today on the couch is Talkhouse's executive editor, Josh Modell.
Hello. Hey, I'm high energy today also. Between the two of us, we'll get one Elia.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all we can hope for.
Yeah, very
it's
best.
Like, in total, we will
Very
be one
best.
Elia.
Yeah.
Well, this is actually an excellent podcast.
It is.
So
And
today,
it's a high-energy podcast.
a high-energy podcast between two people who just bring it. So I think we should bring it in tribute to this conversation between Adam Conover and Raphael Bob-Waksberg. Now, Adam, of course, is really known to all Americans, I believe, as the host of Adam Ruins Everything, True TV's informational comedy show in which he kind of annoyingly, charmingly, irritatingly, infuriatingly, some might say, brings facts to his friends, debunks myths, and all this kind of thing in a just a rather lovely way. It's now in season 3, started airing a couple of weeks ago, that season, and past episodes are on Netflix, so people are immersing themselves in this man's work, which is very exciting.
Adam has a huge following for this show. People love it. I think they love to feel like a kinship with the guy who's like, well, you're right, but...
Yeah, I feel like I maybe have become more confident in doing that with my friends, because it is definitely a tendency in me to be like, yeah. Anyway, he is talking today to Raphael Bob-Waksberg, the creator of BoJack Horseman. Now, can we take a side, like, you're a BoJack fan?
I am a BoJack fan. I think BoJack is an incredible show. It started off kind of weird and people didn't really know what to make of it. And now I think retroactively, everyone loves it. It's a crazy sort of satire about Hollywood and addiction, and it's done with cartoon animals led by the title character.
Played by Will Arnett.
Yeah, BoJack Horseman.
Yeah. It's great to see that those who doubted have cast aside their doubts.
There was so much Scotland just came through in the word doubted there. I loved it.
Doubted!
How dare you doubt me?
Yes.
Sorry.
Freedom! But yeah, no, these guys are both incredibly funny, gifted comedians. But to me, what makes this such a special conversation is the fact that they have incredibly deep roots. They are longtime friends, and you know, they really get into stuff that an average person just couldn't reach.
Absolutely. There's a familiarity that you see at the very beginning of this conversation. Clearly, they know each other, and they let us know in this conversation how they know each other. They were roommates. They were in a comedy troupe together called Old English, and then they kind of went their separate ways, which they talk about a little bit too, and both found smashing success in the last few years.
Yeah, I thought their conversation was fascinating. They started off touching on stuff like Adam's personal history and how that informs his show. But to me, the true joys of these conversations are the sort of the surprises and the deviations. The thing about the dishes rule when they live together.
Very funny.
And Raphael's love of the Howie Mandel prank TV show, How We Do It.
Yeah, there's a great How We Do It digression. It's awesome how they kind of bounce back and forth between having kind of serious conversation with each other about their own history and then just laughing together and having a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's something that gave me great joy was the song.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's not ruin the song because I feel like the surprise element is what makes it.
Let's just say there is a song.
The song.
There is a song. And it's not a song that's been recorded.
It is an original.
I think we can give away that it's improvised in the moment.
In the moment. And that is, in many ways, the beauty of it.
Yeah. They have a little fun at Mark Maron's expense at the beginning of the episode here.
Totally justified, I think, and rather loving. And then, of course, there's diving into Adam's inspirational life improvements.
Yeah, they kind of let it all hang out. Raphael talks about his favorite tweets of Adam's, which he can no longer see because Adam deletes all of his tweets once a year, which is kind of weird.
I think I might adopt that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's not a bad idea. People will find everything you've said, though, so you should still be careful.
My tweets are the most boring ever. So let's get to the interesting stuff and let these guys talk.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Should we just jump in, or you want to? Hello, Adam.
Hi, Raphael.
Hello, you are Adam.
Yeah, you are Raphael.
We are having a conversation.
We're in my living room.
Welcome to the podcast.
Here we go. What's up, talk housers, talk housies, talk arenos, talk buddies? Hey, check me out I'll be at the La Jolla Comedy Store
no.
tonight
Oh,
in 5 minutes.
I hate
if the
this.
show's about to start.
This is
you
awful.
You already missed it.
Oh, no.
Too bad.
What have I signed up for?
Please use my promo code.
This is happening.
Adam's Good.
Oh, we're in
at
it.
thepornstore.com,
no.
where you can get all your best porn, and we sponsor podcasts for some
You ever
reason.
think I want more stamps? Well, let me tell you something. Here's what I would like to do. I want to get personal with you, Adam.
Oh, okay.
I want to talk about you.
Oh my gosh, you came in with a mission.
I do. I have some questions.
Did no preparation.
Well, welcome to my podcast.
Oh my gosh, stamps.com.
My guest today is Adam Conover. For the listener,
Okay.
star and creator and executive producer of Adam Ruins Everything, which is a television program in which you play a version of yourself.
That's true.
It is educational and informational, as well as being very funny.
Thank you.
And you talk about things and quote unquote ruin things.
Yeah.
In a way that is helpful for the viewer, but annoying for the other characters on the show. Is that a fair way to summarize
that's a good way
what
to
you
put
do? Is it fair to say that you moved around a bunch when you were growing up? Is a bunch? No, that's not fair.
No.
You did move, didn't you?
A little bit.
The reason I'm curious about this is because I feel like a lot of the comedy of Adam Ruins Everything is about, or not a lot of it, but a strain of it, a fundamental part of it, is about the anxiety, or maybe anxiety is not the right word. Maybe it's more of a delight in the difficulty of making new friends. And I wonder if that is something that you feel is like a part of you, and that's something that you have had. And so that's why I asked about moving around a bunch. Is that something that like you have had experience with, or feel like, oh yes, I am a new person in a place, and I found that people don't always like the person that I am.
You're not far off.
Okay.
I wouldn't peg it to moving necessarily, although it's not. I've never had that thought, but it's not impossible that that's informed my perspective. But yeah, I mean, it's the comedy that comes from the character is based on my social difficulties growing up, certainly, right? That like it's the anxiety of like wanting to be liked and not knowing how to make people like you, and everything that you do that you think will make them like you makes them dislike you more. And then so that's basically what it is. And it's just entirely there's no word for dramatization that's comedy, like a comatization.
Comedic escalation?
Yeah,
or?
Comedic escalation of that relationship that I had with people when I was younger. I mean, like literally, I mean, you've known me since the sophomore year of college.
Oh yeah, here's some context. We are old friends.
Yeah, yes. So like just the basic thing of me having read something and something coming up in conversation, me saying, oh, actually, that's not true. I read this, and other people being like, ugh, shut up. It's something that happened to me countless times, and I just put it in the show.
Yeah.
And the reason, I've said this in a lot of interviews, but the reason I put it in the show is because when I wrote the first sketch for College Humor about engagement rings, I had actually written sort of like educational or similar stuff before, but the reaction was always like, oh my god, this is so pedantic, like the other writers, it's a writer's room, they're a little bit tough and they make fun of you a little bit. So I wrote in two of the other writers making fun of me in the sketch in order to like just stave off that interaction in the writer's room, just to like write
I know, I'm annoying.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that ended up being the whole engine of the whole thing. And then we just in the sketch phase, and then we sort of blew that out into like the larger, character that's having a problem with just interacting with people on that level. And then so most of the characters' stories are about trying to find acceptance from other people, but then also ultimately find acceptance from himself at the end of the day.
Do you see this long term as like, this is my guy, this is what I am, this is my persona, and I want to keep doing this kind of thing?
Yep. I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm like, ooh, like, can I help get someone else's project on the ground, off the ground? Can I help get it on the ground?
Yeah. You got to start there.
And then you get it off the ground.
And then you get it off.
And that I'm interested in that, but I am, for my own purposes, like, how can I do comedy that like enlightens and informs in different ways on larger scales, and so that's what I'm thinking about, and that could take a lot of different forms. It's like a wide open field. It's like no one's doing it. No one is doing it at all. I mean, I'm starting to see that more. There was a trend piece in something about how like more stand-up comedians are using PowerPoint, and I was like, no, that was my.
Well, I feel like it feels,
but it's still not informative.
But I think like like John Oliver is doing stuff like this, Hassan Minhaj, right? I mean, that's about current events, but it's the same kind of thing of like, it's funny, but I'm going to teach you something, right?
Oh, totally. And John Oliver's show came out while we were working on the first season. And I was like, for me, that was like, okay, this is very different than what I want to do, but it's like proof that it'll work.
Yeah, people are interested. People want to learn things.
And so it is a lot of like, I feel like a lot of people, I mean, it's entirely Jon Stewart's influence, I think, that like, this many years after, like, oh, what else can we do with this, right? That a lot of people are having these sort of same ideas at the same time. But the thing that I think, when I'm like, okay, what's the wide open field is that like everyone is doing current events. And there's so much more to learn about and to talk about, right? There's like, I mean, I describe...
Let's talk about some old events.
Yeah. Well, when I really want to turn off networks and get people to not watch the show, I like to describe it as liberal arts comedy, where it's like we can do anything, right? We can do science, we do history, we did a thing on the English language, on grammar,
The world is an open web of possibilities, just waiting to be ruined.
Yeah. There's always more to learn stuff about. So
in making the show, I'm curious if there was a moment or what's maybe the biggest example of you yourself being disillusioned about a thing through your research, of maybe being like, no, I think this thing is actually good, and being like, oh no, I have to ruin this. This is bad.
The best example I have of that, my favorite example of when we made a discovery in the writing process is kind of the opposite of what you're describing, though, which is that we did a segment on, we had an episode called Adam Ruins Wellness. And I thought that was going to be like a real slam dunk. Hey, we've been doing a lot of heavy topics about, serious things. Let's just do some real silly debunking and talk about how, all this stuff's the placebo effect, right? Sure. We go to a spa and, foot pads and essential oils and all those things. It's all the placebo effect, right? And our big third act will be, hey, the placebo effect is really powerful and it actually explains more than you think it does, right? And that's for people who are like, no, it can't be the placebo effect. No, the placebo effect is super powerful, right? What we found in our research was I started finding the work of some scientists at, oh my God, I believe it's Harvard, and I'm blanking. We talked to so many experts.
It was some college in Cambridge. I don't remember which one. Somewhere. It was Boston.
When I was in Cambridge. Can I look up the name of this person? I really want to say what they're.
Should I talk about some stuff while you're looking it up?
No, I want to edit this out.
Looking it up. He's looking it up. He didn't know the name off the top of his head. Looking it up. He doesn't know everything. He has a team of researchers giving him information. Looking it up. The fiction is punctured. It doesn't work because now I know the truth. I've seen behind the curtain. I cannot enjoy his work anymore because I know he's not a genius. Looking it up. He has to look it up. His name is Adam and he's a giant fraud.
This is, Google is taking longer than the length of that song.
Google's taking longer. Takes so long to Google. I thought Google was supposed to be fast. What happened to Google? They got distracted making calendars. Why don't they just do the one thing they're supposed to do? What happened to Google Buzz? What happened to Google Talk? What happened to Google Sit on a House?
This is terrible. I'm just going to stop looking it up because I can't find it. So there's two researchers from...
Can you make up some names from them?
Cambridge.
Let's call them Froberg and Schmoberg.
Sure, Froberg and Schmoberg.
Schmoberg.
Who do research on, damn it, no, I actually want to look it up.
Looking it up, he's got to look it up again. He cannot know a thing, he has to know. He cannot be appreciative of just not knowing something. Maybe he can wonder or use his imagination. He has to know facts. He has to know facts. This is the man who must always know facts. He has to be right. He has to be correct. What if he didn't know something and then someone listening would say, I know the answer. I am so frustrated that you don't know this. And your friend is singing.
I really think we should edit this out.
It's not
maybe
your call.
half the length. Two researchers named Ted Kapchuk and Catherine Hall.
It was worth it. Totally worth it.
Well, I have to the heroes are the experts of our show, so I have to give them credit where credit's due.
How do you get to Catherine Hall?
When we're like, how do we find the people?
Practice.
Oh my God, I thought it was a question.
Why would you think that?
Oh my gosh. Imagine if that was the name of the hall. So they do research on placebos. And Ted Kapchuk, in fact, is a former alternative medicine practitioner.
It's also, I hate when I have to sign into something online. I have to fill out a Ted Kapchuk to prove that I'm a human.
If anybody remembers where this started, fill me in.
Yeah. Catherine Hall and Ted Kapchuk.
Yeah. They
got a Kapchuk Hall.
Got a Kapchuk
Hall.
Catherine Hall. Got a Kapchuk Hall.
Kapchuk Hall.
Catherine Hall. I'm not as good at the puns as you. So I went into it thinking, hey, all this stuff is bullshit. It's the placebo effect, right? They do research on the placebo effect. What they found is that the placebo effect is so powerful that it really does give a therapeutic benefit to people. And that, in fact, the placebo effect is used unconsciously by traditional medicine, Western medicine's a bad term for it, but people know what that means. Science-based medicine or whatever.
Western medicine.
Mainstream medicine is a good way to put it.
I imagine like doctors in cowboy hats slinging pills at people.
Yeah.
Western medicine.
I'll shoot you in the knee and that'll fix your knee.
Yeah.
Well, they use the placebo effect too, right? That like when you go see, an oncologist and they treat you with care and they, lightly touch your shoulder and say like, hey, I hope you, you're it's going to be okay kind of thing. That is the placebo effect as well, right? Or just your belief that works, right? That the oncologist knows what they're doing. So not only does the placebo effect, it can reduce symptoms of Parkinson's, it can really activate the body's own healing response, right? So the point is.
So what you're saying is praying is the best cure.
It's
if you believe it.
But
if you don't believe it, you're going to die.
Well, one of the interesting things about the research is that even if you know something is a placebo, it still works. So the point being, if you go pursue alternative medicine and and this ended up being the conclusion of our show. I went in thinking, okay, we're going to do a whole thing about how all these, sort of goopy stuff is nonsense. We ended up doing a segment, our end is like, look, because the placebo effect is so powerful, all this stuff can actually make you feel better.
Right.
So if you do it and you don't disregard, mainstream medicine as well, and if the treatment isn't hurting you, right, as long as it's not, some kind of crazy enema that's going to do some bad stuff to your body. But if it's just like, hey, you're going to the spa and, you're seeing a, traditional medicine healer who's going to treat you with care and that makes you feel better, then that's a fine thing to integrate into your care. And that was really surprising to me. I expected us to do a debunk, but we ended up saying like, no, the people who are skeptics about this kind of thing are actually maybe not giving it enough credit.
Take that, skeptics.
Yeah.
How dare
skeptics?
How dare they? Just come on, it's working. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. We used to live together.
We did live together.
What was that like?
It was a lot like this. I mean,
we lived together for 3 years in Brooklyn, and it was a good time.
It was a bad. I had a good time. It was very nice. We were pretty good roommates.
Do you think we were good roommates?
I think we were pretty good roommates. I think we were as good as could be expected.
I think so. I think we mostly got along. We had rules that we set up and followed.
Should we talk about our dishes rule?
The dishes rule. I think, in theory, it was a good rule. I feel like we didn't. I'll take the blame. It was more me. I took advantage, perhaps. Or
no, I did too. So the dishes rule, for those listening who didn't live with us, the dishes rule was that we didn't have a dishwasher and neither of us liked doing dishes, so we would take turns doing the dishes. Yeah. And the rule was you didn't have to, because we don't want to nag each other and say you have to do the dishes.
Right. It was your day or was my day. Right.
It was your turn or my turn.
Right.
And so your turn could last as long as you needed. You could wait 2 weeks before doing the dishes, but you had to do them. Yes. If it was really egregious, say, hey man, you got to do them sometime. Yeah. But it's not like you have to do them every night or anything.
Right.
And so
the best part was when Jackson came to live with us.
Yes. So we had this. So we had a roommate, we had an extra room, and we had this kid sublet. He was like a 19-year-old kid. We were like 23, so who knows? Right. But, he was a couple years younger than us. And then we
told him the rule about the dishes.
He was like, okay, sounds good. And then now the rule's going around in threes. Oh, that's great. You only do the dishes 1 out of 3 times.
It's Jackson's turn. I'm going to make myself another sandwich. Why would I reuse the same plate? I'm going to make a new plate. Not my dish to do. Yeah, Jackson's going to do it.
Because you would just do one dish if it was like, I need a dish. I'll just do one.
Yeah.
I'll do the dish I need. So Jackson, we were in our early 20s. I want to make this very clear.
Yeah.
And so
we were children.
We were children back then. So Jackson was like, I don't know what was up with that kid, but he was often not around. And once he was just like gone.
Well, I think he realized very quickly, I don't want to live with these two people.
No,
I don't want to
be
here.
Bad. We were not that bad.
The neighborhood wasn't great. I just think he was like, I have like friends who live in Manhattan. I'm going to go crash with them or whatever. He just was never around. Yeah. He just disappeared.
And so he left. He was gone once for like 3 weeks, but it was his turn
3 weeks
to do the
out
dishes.
of the month that he was living there.
Yeah. And it was his turn to do the dishes. So we just never did them.
It was Jackson's turn
to do the dishes.
We have a system.
And then he finally came back to pick up his stuff. He was like, hey, I'm moving out. And we were like, all right, you got to do the dishes though. It's your turn. And so he did all the dishes.
I think we texted him and was like, where are you? You have to do the dishes. We're running out of dishes, Jackson. What are we supposed to do? We've been eating out a lot. It's a real problem.
And then he came back, did all the dishes, and left out of our lives forever.
Didn't even spend the night. Just
Jackson, if you're listening to this, please be in touch. I would like to know what happened to you.
That was real dumb of us. We should have just done the dishes ourselves.
One of my memories, I was texting you about this the other day because we had a small TV.
Yeah.
We bought a $90 it was a Polaroid brand CRT TV.
It was a Polaroid TV, so it would take pictures of live events and then it would print out the shows.
It was like it was the cheapest TV available the year before LCD TVs were invented. So it was like a tiny little TV, and we watched a lot of network television.
Right.
We watched a lot of, my main members of the apartment are watching Deal or No Deal. And the marriage ref.
I remember we watched Howie Mandel's prank show, This Is How We Do It. I was very excited about This Is How We Do It. I made a Facebook event and invited all my friends to come see the premiere of This Is How We Do It. And we had a bet, I believe. It was you,
I
right?
love this. I tell this story so often. This is my favorite story.
Where Adam said, you think they're going to sing the song, This Is How We Do It? And I was like, no, that's too on the nose. They call it that. So they don't need to sing it. You wouldn't put the song in the thing where it is. And he's like, let's see how long it takes before they do it. And I was like, they're not going to do it, man. And then it was immediate.
It was second one. It was the first second. It was like, okay, up next, this is how we do it.
And what I love about the title, How We Do It.
I want to be clear. We're not bringing this up let's revisit down memory lane. We literally talk about this every time we see each other.
Here's what I love about How We Do It. How We Do It is my favorite kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if you watch my show, BoJack Horseman, now in season 5 on Netflix.
Yes, please.
There are many jokes that fall under this rubric. But How We Do It is a pun that only works one way.
That's why I love it too.
It's so funny.
It's a one-way pun.
He put his name into the song, This Is How We Do It.
Yeah.
But how we do it is not a sentence. It doesn't make sense as a phrase. Who do it? How we do it?
How we do it?
Who is the one who do it?
Who do it? How we do it?
Who to do it? Did someone did it?
We just walk around the apartment all day going, who do it? How we do it?
Did Howie do? Was it did by Howie? Howie do it?
And it was spelled that way. It wasn't like how we do it. The name of the show was How We Do It.
Because he do it. Who else do it?
See,
if you are the one who do it, then you get to call your show How We Do It. Although he often had other people doing the pranks for him. He didn't always do it. Sometimes other people do it on that show. What are your influences?
Jon Stewart, obviously.
Yeah.
Jon Stewart was like my Johnny Carson figure.
What's he doing now?
He works on his wife's farm.
Is that right?
I think, or that's the last thing she opened. His wife opened, I believe, an animal rescue in New Jersey, and he does that, and then he occasionally shows up on late night shows.
So she's the opener, and then he's like,
sure,
yeah.
He was briefly working on some project on HBO, but didn't turn anything. I mean, man, after you do that show, after you do the Daily Show for 15 years, whatever he did, I understand why you'd be like, I am done with this. But that show, if you go back and watch old Daily Show clips, man, no one did it at a higher level. No one is doing it at that high of a level now.
Yeah. He's a good, talented man.
Yeah.
Jon Stewart.
Well, he created a new way of doing comedy. It was incredibly influential.
Yeah. Take that, Kilborn.
Yeah. Oh, poor guy.
Poor guy. Why poor guy? He's doing okay.
He had a good life. It's true.
He had a good life.
He's alive. He's alive.
He's doing all right.
He's alive.
He's continuing to have a good life.
Yeah.
Do you have a comedy philosophy?
Oh boy.
Do you think in those terms? Of here's what I want to say about what comedy is for. Do you have any when you think about what you're do you think it is a responsibility of comedians to shine a light on things and tell truth to power? Is that I
don't tell anybody else what their responsibility is, right. But I shoulder responsibility myself. You feel like that is your responsibility
as a comedian?
That's what I want to do. Yeah. That's how I motivate myself to get up in the morning and keep doing it. I try to figure out new ways to do it and to, expose things that haven't been exposed. I don't have a overweening sense of how much power it has.
Not overweening, just the right amount of weaning.
Yeah, I
just
like
weans
to wean.
it just correctly.
Yep.
I'd say I have an underweening sense. I could wean a little more, I think, in my sense.
I mean, comedy, comedy can't do that much to change the world.
Yeah,
right?
you feel that way.
You're
You're not one of those people who's like, comedy is the only way the jester can speak to the king. Through comedy is how we expose the ills of society. You laugh to stop yourself from crying, and you learn to stop yourself from dying.
We've had a good 15 years of like that kind of discourse about comedy.
Right.
And it's like, that was a great way to talk about comedy in 2005.
Yeah, you think we're past that?
Yeah, comedy needed to be taken more seriously. And I'm glad that it is, and that people that there's like,
but now it's like too
close to real
serious?
comedy. No, I don't think so. I don't think it's too serious.
You don't think it overweened?
I'm glad that we have real comedy criticism now. Like a lot of comedians are like, oh, everyone wants to pull everything apart. I think that's good.
Yeah.
But the idea that like, oh man, like the satirists are the only real truth tellers in our society. Like, I don't think that that's true. I think that comedy has certain rhetorical powers that other mediums lack, and that there are certain things that you can do with comedy.
Yeah.
But I don't think that just because something is comedy makes it necessarily more powerful.
I think the act of portraying something on television or in a movie inherently normalizes it and perhaps even glamorizes it. I mean, that was a big conversation we had in the BoJack writers' room last season about, because if you asked me a couple years ago, I would say it inherently glamorizes it. And I've since backtracked a little to inherently normalizes it, which I think is maybe slightly more
It's like
accurate.
smoking in movies is a very obvious example.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we, as creators, are not always aware of the normalization that we're doing, or we're not thinking about that. And I think that growing up, when I would see things on TV or in movies, I feel like I often gave the creators or the distributors the benefit of the doubt of like, well, clearly this is okay because otherwise it wouldn't be allowed to be on TV. Like they've thought about this, and this is there's standards that they've jumped through, and like they have a confidence in what they're doing, and there's thinking behind this. They're not just doing it just to do it.
Yeah.
And now I think, oh no, mostly they're doing it just to do. They have not thought about it.
Yeah.
And that's just
They're
from
just trying to
working,
get scripts out the door.
Yeah, just from working in the industry more and being around more and just growing older and like more cynical about
you realize
things.
nobody knows what they're doing.
No one knows
at
what
any
they're doing,
moment.
right?
Yeah.
Like there's no like standard or agreement of like, these are the ways in which we should have nudity on our shows, or like, this is what this nudity is doing. It's like, oh no, that guy just wanted to see a naked lady, like, or whatever,
Or the network asked for it.
or the network wanted it, or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's no thoughtfulness behind it or a justification of like, well, actually what we're doing is this. I mean, sometimes there is, but also, does it matter?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I want to get something new out of you though.
Oh, okay.
I want to know. What's something that I could ask that nobody else would ever ask you? Do you feel like leaving our comedy group or the dissolution of our comedy group allowed you to blossom as an individual comedic voice?
Totally.
Do you think you were stunted by being in the group? Or do you think being in the group helped you in a way that then you were ready to then be your own person? Was it good or bad to be in a group with me?
Hey, guess what? It was, it's been bad to know you.
Is that right?
I think it's probably both, like we were very lucky I was very lucky to be working with talented people who we were collectively talented enough that we had like a small modicum of like industry success. Like we did festivals and we got well established as comedians in New York and stuff like
Super
that.
Deluxe 1.0.
We got, Super Deluxe 1.0. They paid us to make videos in 2005. And so that experience was great. And if I hadn't met you guys and we hadn't been working together, I never would have had enough momentum to go into comedy at all. Like I don't think I would have said
You were going to be a philosophy guy.
I wanted to go to grad school, and I shouldn't have. And thank God we got a little heat in our comedy group because web videos started taking off as we had videos go up. And I was like, oh, instead of going to grad school, I'll keep working.
Yeah,
with,
I remember we did a show at Bard, which is where our comedy group started.
We went to school,
college. and you graduated. I remember there was a show that was like Adam's last show. And
Yeah.
like you like said goodbye to us and
Yes.
like sang a song and like was like,
Yes.
that's it. I am out of the group now.
Yeah.
I'm going, I think you were going to go to Germany or something.
I had applied to some program where I could go be in Germany for like 3 months, like teach English at a university and study German. And
but
stuff
you were like
that.
saying goodbye to your comedy career.
Yeah.
And then in the fall, you came
I
back.
didn't get that program. I didn't get into it.
And so you're like, I guess I'll keep doing comedy then.
Yeah.
But that you would have had a very different life.
Yeah, I would have had a different life, and I liked comedy, but yeah, I don't think I would have like take it because doing Old English that got us to New York, and then we did enough of those things where I was able to see, okay, here's the path of being a New York comedian.
Do you feel whatever your current level of satisfaction or happiness with your life is? Mm-hmm. I don't want to say what that is for you. Pretty good, right? Do you feel like if you had taken this other path, you would be as satisfied in that life, or do you think you would have felt like something was missing?
That's a good question. I don't know. Because I don't know what that life would have been. I think I probably would have figured it out. You know?
I mean, I have for myself, I have some days where I feel like I'm always going to be the same amount of satisfied no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? But then I have other days where I feel like, no, I have a good life and like I'm living the best possible version of my life right now. And I'm very happy about that. And that there are other things I want and then I get them. And sometimes I go, oh, I'm still unsatisfied. But other times I go, oh no, this is better now. I'm glad I got this thing. So I have trouble coming up with like an overarching philosophy of
there's like
contentment.
research. There's like research on happiness.
Well, I'm not interested in research. I want to come up with my own idea. That's the difference between you and me.
Yeah.
I want to solve it for the first time myself. I don't care what people have said before.
I mean, I think my current life is equal mixtures of, luck, privilege, and then whatever, I added to that, my own personality and my own qualities. Right.
Yeah. So you think privilege is not luck? You've earned that privilege?
No. It's just not luck. Like
it's not a subset of luck. Like, wouldn't you say that privilege comes from luck?
Luck is like something that like happens to you almost randomly, right place, right time kind of stuff. Privilege is like something that you were born with or is like given to you.
But you were lucky to be born with that, no?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we're like looking at that level of like randomness, but I wouldn't put it as I think that if you label privilege as luck, it de-emphasizes the power dynamics at play because then it's just like, oh, it could happen to anybody. Fell on my square. No, it's something that like you, it's thousands of years of
it was
coalesced
in
advantage.
the square that I fell onto.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, like I don't. Yeah, if we imagine ourselves as like dissolute souls that appear in a random body, then yes, we could call that luck, but I just don't know if that's
Adam
a model.
Conover was always going to have the privilege that you have. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that it was luck to happen to know you guys at the time that I did, that we could build comedy momentum ourselves, right? I think the privilege and my own characteristics would have resulted in a pretty good life for me.
Yeah.
Either way, I think probably if I had gone to grad school for philosophy in 2004 and had graduated right after the financial crisis with a PhD in philosophy, I think that might not have been great.
Right.
But who knows if I actually would have done that, right?
Well, you'd at least have colorful ways of describing your current circumstances.
Yes.
You would understand the precedent in philosophical circles. Do you think you were living the best possible Adam Conover life?
Yeah, I think
this
so.
This is what you're.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm very, I'm self-actualized. The hierarchy of needs or whatever. I'm well fed.
And you're on your way to actualizing others.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very like right now. My main problem is overwork and like work stress.
I'm in that same bucket.
Yeah.
I'm in that bucket with you.
Yeah. And so that's something that like I need to manage, but that's like my only problem.
I feel like there's a ladder,
than my concern for the world,
a ladder of success where at first you get a little bit of success and you learn that you can start saying no to things you don't want to do. And that's really empowering. But then you get more successful and you learn that you have to say no to things you do want to do.
Yeah, no, that's the problem.
Yeah,
is saying no to things I do want to do. Yeah, because it's like, hey, you want to do this thing, but it's a matter of, okay, I want to go on tour. Right. I'm doing the show. I also want to go on tour. That's a goal of mine. Well, if you want to go on tour, it's got to be during this month when you also are doing all this other shit. So sorry, those two things. If you want to go on tour, you have to like really overwork yourself.
Do you feel like this thing you're doing now of juggling all this stuff in the ways that you're juggling it is sustainable long term? Or do you feel like this is a particularly busy part of your life and then you will learn how to take steps back and do less? Or do you feel like things will get more busy and you'll have to juggle more?
I think it's a combination of the two, probably. But I think
said three things, and they are very distinct things. I don't know how you could combine them.
I wasn't listening.
Okay, that's fair. You were thinking about all the work you have to do.
Oh, God. You know, I've heard people say that, like, oh, your 30s are like when you like work too hard.
Oh,
you know?
okay. That's terrifying because
yeah.
I'm not even halfway through my 30s. I got a lot more, I got more 30s ahead of me than behind me.
So I think there's like a skill to manage, you know, and you know, it's also been a matter of you know, currently a strike while the iron's hot kind of thing. Where like you got. Are
you afraid that opportunities will go away? That this is the most you will ever be in demand?
I'm getting less so, but it's, you know, because I think we're sort of reaching a little bit of a cruising altitude with what I do, where it's, you know, that's what I hope that it's our 4th year on the air.
Right.
That we have episodes on Netflix now, so more people are seeing them. And, you know, just in terms of like, okay, hey, if, you know, cable television falls into the ocean, which it kind of seems like maybe is happening.
I think it'll catch on fire before it falls into the ocean.
You know, I think I can. You know, I think there'll be paths for me to do work that I find interesting. You know, I'm not the type of person where it's like I need to constantly be on an upward trajectory. Like, I'd be happy doing a little bit less as long as I found the work interesting and people were seeing it and people enjoyed it. Did you feel like our sketch group enabled you or stunted you?
Both. I mean, I think it made an incredible foundation for me in my comedic development.
Yeah,
and then I think when it started to feel stultifying. Is the word stultifying?
Yeah.
It stultified me.
Well, that's
when it fell apart. I mean, I felt like it ended at the right time for me, personally.
Yeah. I felt afterwards I was like, oh, no one can say no to me doing this anymore. You know, that was the big thing.
I mean, I think it definitely was a comedy boot camp in a wonderful way. That I think my comedy chops got sharpened. Do you sharpen chops?
Yeah.
You could sharpen chops, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I honed and sharpened
with a knife.
my chops. I think it coalesced for me a lot of my philosophy on comedy, and it made clear the kinds of things I wanted to do and the kinds of things I thought were funny. And I have great memories and made great friends. And that was very helpful. I did feel like towards the end of it, we were saying no to each other more than we were saying yes to each other.
Totally.
And I think that was a problem. And I wonder if that's just built into being in a, like, do you think we did a bad job, or do you think that was just always going to happen, that we were going to fall apart?
I think that it was probably always going to happen. I think that, you know, the structure of the group was built on the social structure of young men in college and in their early 20s, right? Which was like fundamentally kind of like, you know, pecking order and had a bit of cruelty in it, right?
Yes.
In ways that like we weren't able to see at the time.
Right. We were not aware of how cruel we were being to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And that was like a lot, that was the thing that was like really good for me to get away from, because it was like that stuff was really baked in, you know what I mean? And then as soon as the group broke up and I started doing stuff, you know, in the broader New York comedy community, I was like, oh, like, nobody treats each other like this.
No one's just shitty to you.
Yeah, exactly. No one's like, oh,
in a work setting.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's just like we're, you know, it's a different social setting. But we had like, you know, we were like freshmen in college. Ben and I were freshman year roommates, you know, and so that was like a baked in dynamic.
Well, that's like when you asked earlier, like, you know,
I was 17.
Was it fun for us to live together? Like a lot of my memories of that time are also like us living together and then walking to an office together and spending 10 hours with each other and then walking back home together. It's like, we were on each other all the time. There's no separation of like, this is roommate time and this is like comedy group time.
Yeah.
And so like frustrations would linger and come out in weird ways.
Yeah.
Do you think it was a problem that we did not have this isn't interesting. Enough for that.
Okay.
We talked about it.
Okay. That's fine.
We don't need to unpack it anymore.
Okay.
It feels good.
Yeah.
I think, Adam, I am very proud of you. Can I say that?
Yes, thank you. It's kind.
I think you've done wonderful things with your program and with yourself.
Thank you. I feel the same.
You know what I wanted to talk about? I remember when you quit smoking and started running and stopped taking ADD medicine. Is that right?
Adderall.
Right around the same time. You've made some
like a months of each other.
incredible changes in your life, which I find very inspiring.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to be inspired? Let me ask you this. Well, no, let me ask you this. Does the word inspire, can I be inspired by you while also not making any changes in my own life? Like, does inspiring connote that there was an effect of that inspiration, or can I just be appreciative of
Let's look it up. Can I get the look up song?
You cannot look it up. I'm curious what you think. Like, am I allowed to, is that a fair thing to say? That
I think so.
The changes you have made in your life, because then also I think that's when you got serious about stand-up and like
Yes.
a
little while later, but yeah.
But you were making like choices about who you wanted to be and what you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really made me think about how individuals can change themselves. Because I think there is a feeling generally that like, well, people don't change, not really.
Yeah. Well, I've heard you say that you heard that Matthew Weiner said that about the characters in Mad Men, which was a show that influenced you.
Love it.
Greatly.
But I don't agree with that statement.
You don't agree with that? Because I felt that you agreed with that when you told me that years ago.
No, if I was telling you that, it was because to say that I don't agree with that.
Oh.
Why would I just say, Matthew Weiner says people don't change?
Do you feel
I think people do change. I think it's hard to change, but I think people do.
But I feel that BoJack doesn't change on your show.
I disagree.
Oh, okay.
I think he changes. I think it's subtle and difficult.
It is subtle.
And he doesn't change necessarily in the ways you want him to change. But like when we're writing the character, there are jokes that we'll write. Like, that feels like season 1 BoJack. Like he's not that guy anymore.
God, maybe I should go back and watch.
You might enjoy a second watch of BoJack Horseman. I think it's change is difficult.
Yeah.
But I think it's doable. And I actually think our show is, I mean, maybe this says something about my own outlook on life, but I think of our show as being somewhat optimistic about man's ability to change. And I think maybe that might not be everyone else's interpretation of the show, but I think of the show as a hopeful show.
I mean, I made those changes in my life because this February I quit drinking, which was a similar thing. Yeah.
Which I just want to say, as someone who lived with you, these changes seem impossible to me.
Yeah.
Like at the time, like to give the listener an idea of like so much of your persona was like, yeah, I smoke and I drink a beer before bed and that's who I am, baby.
Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
You got a problem with that?
Yeah.
I'm, Dennis Leary in an MTV commercial, smoking cigarettes, and just talking about my stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I made those changes partially because I was trying to escape the idea that you can't change,
right.
That I felt like I had picked up from other people in my life who I was worried I was going to be like that, like, oh, I can't actually make progress and I should just give up, and I was trying to be like, no, I can actually do this, I can actually make a change in that way. And the thing is, making that large of a change feels really good.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons, like, it's a very powerful force. Like, when people like do something like they join CrossFit or anything like that, and they're all about it, and they're like, oh my gosh, right?
Yes.
It really opens up your life when you do those things, especially when it's difficult. So that's something that, I think we can have more in our dialogue about ourselves.
Right.
But yeah, I was just trying to look at I was unhappy with my life and I was like, okay, how can I change it? The funny thing is I quit drinking at the same time that earlier this year I was working on a new project for a network that didn't end up going like that. It was one of those projects that in retrospect was like fatally flawed. It was like, we didn't have enough time. They didn't know what they were buying. You
were drinking all the time.
Well, I was a maintenance drinker. Like I just had a nightcap drinker, a couple drinks a night. Like no one would have said I had a drinking problem. But so I was working in the middle of this like sort of cursed project. And that was the worst time of my year. And that was for some reason the week that I chose to quit drinking. And I wasn't sure why I didn't make that connection at the time. But now I'm like, oh, I think I did that because I wanted to prove that. I was unhappy and I was trying to like make a positive change, right? And it was like, oh, it really opened up my life when I did that. But the thing, when people tell me that about those changes that I made, that was like 2009 at this point, that was inspiring, that means a lot to me because that was part of why I did it was
to inspire other people to show people, look what I can do.
Also to receive social approval. I'm very driven by social approval. And so I wanted, when my strategy for quitting smoking was I quit smoking.
I think we cycle back to the beginning of our conversation about stamps.com. About how it's funny to say that I'm very driven by social approval when so much of your show is about not receiving social approval.
Right. Well, that's been my like one of my driving needs. Right. My life was to receive it, you know, and so that's why the character is. I tried to write the character as myself in a funny way,
or what you were afraid of being, perhaps.
No, I think it's a younger version of me, is how I think of it.
Of what you are sure you were.
Yeah, so I totally was that. I always think about seeing an episode of my favorite stuff on like Curb Your Enthusiasm is like, Oh, this is just Larry David making fun of himself.
Yeah.
Like I remember an episode where he goes to the beach and he's just like, "What do people see in this? I don't like the like."
I remember one
And I was like,
time.
"Oh, that's very funny to make fun of yourself.
Yeah.
Just turn yourself into a comedy character." And that's what I tried to do.
I
on the
remember
show.
one time for your birthday, I got you a book because like, oh, Adam loves like learning things and facts. And so here's like, it's like a book of like fun facts about stuff. And I was like, oh, Adam will like this. I don't usually buy birthday presents for Adam, but this is a nice opportunity. You know, I see this in the store. It made me think of him.
Yeah.
I have a warm feeling when I'm purchasing it. I will give him this book of facts. And I remember you unwrapped it, you looked at it, and you said, oh, these kinds of books are famously under-researched and hard to track. Like, there's no bibliography. I don't know where these facts are coming from.
Asshole. I don't remember this
remember
at
this at
all.
all?
I don't remember this in the
Like,
least.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's fine. No, we can laugh about it now. But when you say
can
like, when you say this character is who I was at a younger age,
Yeah.
I go, well, that's not. Well, maybe.
Well, I also remember, like, maybe you weren't there that day, but we shot an Old English sketch that we had, like, a pilot let us shoot in his private plane.
Yeah, I
And
was not there for that, but
and then we were chatting afterwards with the pilot, and
Yeah.
one of the people in the group was like, "Oh, why do you have to turn your cell phone off or your Game Boy off? You know, your
Yeah.
Kindle off. Those didn't exist at the time, so just Game Boy off when you take
off
off
and land."
And the pilot was like, "Well, it could interfere with the electronics," and I was like, "I read that it doesn't interfere with the electronics. That's total bullshit." And he was like, no, it does, son. And afterwards, everyone made fun of me, like, you contradicted the pilot
Right,
of the plane. But guess what? I was fucking right.
right. But also, guess what? He was letting us use his plane.
Yeah, for free.
Yeah.
For free. Yeah, I mean, it exercised those demons for me to make a comedy version of myself.
I do. I feel a lot of times that in writing BoJack, I am exercising things from myself. That I think I am a happier, lighter person because I have this dark show where I can just kind of funnel all of my darkness into.
Yeah.
Although I might be a happier, lighter person because I have a successful TV show.
That could be
live
true,
in a
too.
nice house and I
Yeah.
have a lovely wife.
Yeah.
It's hard to say,
Yeah.
what it is, but I do feel like do I seem like a happier, lighter person to you than 10 years ago?
I think so. Yeah, I think you do, actually. I think you do. You had a lot of fatalistic feelings back then. I like a story I remember about you,
Yeah.
and it's just because it's a story I've
Yeah.
told before. Maybe I've told it to you recently. But you had gone on a date with a girl, and then you came back, and I was like, "How'd the date go?" And you're like, "Ugh." And I was like, "What's the matter?" And you're like, "I can't see myself having grandkids with her." And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Did you have a nice time? Then go on another date, dummy." You know?
Why?
It was like
To what end?
that to me was
Well, I will say-
sort of darkness. Oh, you can never really relate to another person sort of feeling. Like I
Yeah.
feel like you had that sort of feeling. Do we ever really know each other? You know?
Ask me my first date with my wife. Ask me if I thought I could have grandchildren with her.
Did you?
100%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I knew it. I was like, yeah, this is worth pursuing.
Yeah.
There's possibilities here.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of. I mean, yeah, I feel that you were a man with darkness, and that I didn't in my 20s relate to darkness that much. I still don't. You know, and I'm lucky to, but
Lucky or privileged?
privileged, I suppose. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, my social demons are fully exercised by the show that I do. And do I have others? Maybe there's a couple more things I could do, but I mean that's part of why my work is not narrative about the difficulties of being a human alive
Right,
on Earth,
right.
and is instead much more
The
intellectual.
difficulty
and,
of knowing facts.
yeah, and it's about understanding the world. And
Do you worry that if this outlet went away and you could not exercise the stuff, that you would become annoying again?
yeah, probably. If I could no longer do comedy about these things, I mean, I would just go do comedy about this
What
stuff.
if What if someone said you're not allowed to?
Like if the government said it wasn't
Well,
allowed.
the framers of the Constitution clearly don't think Adam Conover should be doing comedy.
That would be annoying. Yeah, I would. Who would I tell about the Harper's article I read? Yeah, it's true. I mean, currently I still tweet links out sometimes, but I have like a thing where when I read an article, I can save it to a little database I have with like tags and stuff for like, oh, this is about this, and I was interested in, here's the section from it I like, and then maybe I can use it in a story later. And that's very satisfying because it makes me feel like I'm able to process this stuff and go like, oh, I'm adding it to a collection that I can maybe turn into some material later.
Can I ask you a question about Twitter?
Of course.
You've taken a step back and you've deleted a lot of tweets over the years.
Oh, yeah. Well, a couple of years ago, and I've tried to do this every year. I forgot to do this last year, but I deleted all my old tweets, and I'm trying to do it as a yearly
just
tweet
all
delete.
of them.
Yeah.
Do you ever get sentimental? Are there tweets you're like, that was a good tweet?
I have an archive of them. Yeah, I have a backup. But they don't need to all be online.
Can I tell you my favorite tweet that you deleted?
Oh, please.
That I'm sad that I can no longer find and read.
I think I might know which one it is.
And it's my favorite tweet you ever tweeted that is now gone forever.
I know which one it is.
And on late nights, I would go to it and just read it again and smile and be filled with warmth.
Yeah.
My favorite tweet is, I wonder what Russell Brand is like when he's not doing his Austin Powers impression. That's a great tweet. I love it. And you took it down. I was like, what happened to that great Russell Brand joke?
I forgot about that
Right?
one.
That's what I'm saying. You delete the tweets. You forget about them.
Well, it wasn't the one I thought it was.
The tweets are the archive of these great observations. And now that's gone. It's like, oh, is he working with Russell Brand on something and had to like sneak that away because he didn't want to insult him? What's that about? But it's just you got to revolve them. But that's a great tweet that's now lost to time.
That's really good. I like me in the past.
That's what I'm saying. It was a good. What did you think I was going to say?
There was a tweet that you used to make fun of me for because the day that Michael Jackson died. The day that Michael Jackson died, everyone was only tweeting about Michael Jackson, and I tweeted a very hack observation. This is like the most hack observation ever, but it's like I've never seen a skateboarder land a trick because I was like walking and I saw a skateboarder, and it was extremely hacky, and you made fun of me because you were like, everyone else tweeting about Michael Jackson, dumb.
It was very funny. Well, because also in those days when it was just linear timelines, you could see the moment when the word got out that Michael Jackson died, and then the whole feed turned into Michale Jackson, and then in the middle of it, I've never seen a skateboarder land a trick. What's this guy doing?
Didn't you hear about Michael Jackson?
Did you hear the news? Everyone's buzzing about it.
I didn't really have a personal relationship with Michael Jackson,
Yeah, clearly
Yeah. Okay. Well, should we wrap up?
I think we should wrap up.
Okay, that's a pretty good conversation.
You are my friend, and I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of you
love
too.
I love seeing your face on billboards, which has not gotten old for me. It's still very weird. Is it weird for you, or are you used to it?
I'm used to it because I have to look at the art all day long. Right. So it's like, I'm like, oh yeah, there's that image I finally approved after 10 revisions. Is like, oh, there it is. Okay, there it is. But it's not
giant Adam Conover.
It doesn't get old for me when I go to New York and it's on the subway. That's when I'm like, that still for me is the biggest.
It feels like a novel. That feels like, oh yeah, I used to deface this and now I'm on it.
Well, and that was how I learned about all the shows. Like, New York subway ads, you have like a weirdly personal relationship with because you're right up on them. You're like standing next to them and you can just sort of draw on them or do whatever. Yeah. And so when I see those, I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. I'm in the New York subway.
Drawing some dicks on my face.
Yeah. I'm proud of you too. You had your show before mine, and so that makes me like we have a different relationship because it's like I did it after. You know what I mean?
Oh, is that right? You feel that way? You feel like you're chasing my success?
No, I don't feel like I'm chasing, but it's like a different kind. It's a different kind of pride. You know what I mean?
We're doing it, buddy.
We're doing it, buddy.
We finally got on this podcast. Our dreams have become a reality. We got to interview each other.
All right.
And I finally learned who is Adam Conover.
I learned nothing about you. I knew all this already.
I finally learned that Adam Conover likes Blue Apron.
Wow. No, I don't like Blue Apron. It's very wasteful.
You get a box of food, you throw it in the oven, and then a half hour later, you got yourself a feast, and you made it yourself.
You put the box directly in the oven?
Just put the box right in.
Take it out.
What's it going to do?
Oh, man. AdamandEve.com.
Yeah.
You get your
AdamandEve.com, not AdamandSteve.com.
Yeah. Squarespace. Every site looks the same with Squarespace.
Do you need a website still? Why?
Do you need a website that looks like everybody else's website?
What do you need a website for? Just put it on Twitter. What's the problem? No one's going to go to your website. They're just going to take the good stuff and move it on Facebook.
Do you need a place where you can link to your Twitter and Instagram accounts from a central location?
Yeah, MailChimp.
MailChimp. That was the cereal.
Yeah, that was good.
All right. Well,
good times.
Good times. Bye-bye.
Adam, how we do it? Goodbye.
We really could not dismount.
Feels very appropriate that the creator of a show called BoJack Horseman cannot dismount very well.
True.
Thank you so much to our fantastic LA-based engineer, Gideon Brower, for recording this at Adam's house, and to Mark Yoshizumi for crushing it at Hook and Fade and for co-producing. We should probably give a little heads up to some Talkhouse podcasts coming in the future.
Some really great ones coming up. We have a conversation with Jeff Tweedy of Wilco and Abby Jacobson, I guess formerly of Broad City. It's really a great conversation. We've also got an upcoming episode with Tom Berlin and David Bazan of Pedro the Lion, which should be a great one.
Love Pedro the Lion.
And the Talkhouse podcast theme song was composed and performed by The Range.
And of course, while you're ranging around on the internet, make sure to hit us up on all of our socials: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, our YouTube channel, and
MySpace.
MySpace, yeah, our much neglected MySpace page.
I better update that.
What is our relationship status on there? I hope it's single. It's complicated.
It's complicated.
Yeah. And of course, go to talkout.com for daily written deliciousness.
The writing is so good you can taste it.
You can. Talkhouse. Okay. Thank you so much to Adam and Raphael for doing this. And from Josh and myself, we will see you next time.
Toodaloo.
Peace.
Hi, I'm Adam Conover, and you're listening to the Talkhouse podcast.
Hello, this is Adam Conover's friend, Raphael Bob-Waksberg. This is the Talkcast Podhouse. What is it?
You got it.
Okay.